Holy Mother kicks off our second album, The Vibrant Sound of Bliss and Decay. It had 2 old songs, 2 new songs, a cover song in between, kind of showing where we came from and where we were heading. But Holy Mother kicked off the album. It was one of my favorite songs from the old days. Very fast song, pretty heavy, dark subject matter. But it was meant to kind of keep the momentum going. And I won't really get into what happened, but it was delayed. There were some pushbacks, some drawbacks, some setbacks. And eventually it would be pushed to being released 10 years after the debut album. So let's get into the world of Holy Mother.
After our debut album came out, there were a few people clamoring for a proper release of some of our old songs. Because back in the day, we had released 2 demo tapes and an MP3.com exclusive album called Chiaroscuro. That album, however, simply contained digital copies of songs found off of those first 2 demo tapes. But those demos were rough, and I no longer liked some of the songs. But there were 2 songs I did like. In fact, they're still 2 of my favorites, Holy Mother being one of our heaviest and fastest. I wanted to release 2 old songs with 2 new songs and a cover song in between, sort of us saying, here's where we were and here's where we're going. Now, I've said before that I don't like to write songs about religion or politics, and I know Holy Mother sounds religious, but the song is more story-based. It was inspired by a story an ex-girlfriend of mine had told me about her own experiences with substance abuse. She told me this story about how she had been on a days-long PCP binge and had gotten to a point where she was out of her mind so much that she tried taking a shower but couldn't remember how to do it. She knew there was water involved and knobs and soap, but she couldn't quite put them all together. She'd have experiences like this from time to time. One of them involved a hallucination where she saw her significant other at the time morph into a demon whose face was completely enshrouded by shadows, except for these bright red eyes glaring back at her. She told me some crazy stories about the things that she experienced prior to getting clean, but it got me thinking and sparked my imagination a little bit. I started to wonder if it was possible for a person to get on a drug-fueled trip where they would experience a religious experience for the first time. The specific scene in my head was a person in a deeply influenced chemical state staring into a little puddle of his own blood. Within that little puddle appears the face of the Virgin Mary, and when he sees her, he's filled with this deep sense of peace and calm. It's the first time this person, or this character, had such an experience when it relates to religious iconography. He becomes enamored by this experience and wants to go revisit it again and again. The need for a high is overcome by the need to be with the image of Mary and his own spilled blood. So time after time, he puts a chemical into his body, draws a bit of blood, and tries to bring about a vision of the Virgin Mary. When he's unsuccessful, he tries more chemicals and draws more blood. This spiral can reach an obvious conclusion. When writing this song, I wanted to have something like a progressive metal meets Pantera type of vibe. I can listen to this song now and remember what influenced me. I can hear elements of Primal Concrete Sledge as well as Dream Theater's Take the Time. Vibrant Sound was also the first album that we ever used a real live human drummer. Recording the album was definitely a different experience for us since we had little experience recording live drums. To Rory's credit, we ended up having to record the drums twice. Our fault, not his. Just one thing in a long list of things which made the making of this album quite challenging. Over the years, Rory has proven to be an amazing talent and person who has always managed to pull together tight, consistent, and creative drumming for not just the studio albums, but also for our live performances as well. This album also came about after Keith and I got off tour with a company called Cirque Dreams, an American-based Cirque-style touring unit with a variety of shows akin to Cirque du Soleil. Yes, back in 2012 and 2013, I landed a gig touring with Cirque Dreams. I've always been a big fan of Cirque-style productions and music, and when I got that gig after a long audition process, I found that they were looking also for a guitarist. Well, I just happened to know one, so Keith and I toured a bit with them, and when we got home, put our efforts into finishing this album up. Holy Mother is a song about how some people seek the light through the depths of oblivion. The person in the song never existed in my life, but was in fact inspired by stories from someone I knew. That being said, the person could exist in some way or another. I don't know, but I imagine so. This person, for him, each trip was a doorway, an escape, a revelation, a fleeting glimpse of something greater. But in the end, the path he chose consumed him. Should the search for meaning come at the cost of one's own life? I can think of certain things worth putting your life at stake for, but this is a case of seeking meaning through illusion, because peace isn't found in losing yourself, it's found in facing life as it is, with clarity and strength, and with the understanding that the answers we seek aren't in escapes, but in how we choose to live.